You sit at a desk. They sit at a desk. You have sales reports. They have book reports. You need supplies. They need supplies. Business is a lot like school. That's why your small business should take advantage of back-to-school deals at Staples. Now, Staples 1-inch 3-ring binders are $1.92. 1-subject notebooks are just 25 cents, and 2-pocket poly folders are just 35 cents each. Make back-to-school your business at Staples.
In-store only while supplies last. Offer ends 9/1/18, limit 30.
Blog Talk Radio.
Original game, let's go. It's time to attack. We the smartest, fastest, and most vicious. We gonna put them in their place. We coming on for one day.
And he's gonna fire deep. But there, inside the 10. Throws Superman. Put route by Edelman. Now they come on a reverse to the near side and a quick run.
Welcome to all you NFL fans out there. Welcome to another edition of Cover 2 with McMillan and Purdue. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Dev McMillan. I'm here at the round table with my partner. We about to get it popping. We got Fred Purdue in the building. Fred, what's going on, good brother?
What's going on, sir? NFL football is back. Pads are popping, and Tyreek Hill is getting behind a lot of defenses. I love it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And the fact that you brought up Tyreek Hill is perfect because today, everybody, we're going to start a series, our NFL preview series, where we're going to give you 2 divisions per episode, and we're going to start over in the West, that being the AFC West and the NFC West. So Tyreek Hill's name coming up in the intro is perfect to where we're about to go here. So, you know, our previous episode was just our welcome back to the fray since it's been a while that you heard from us. The season is quickly approaching, so we're going to get you these 4 preview episodes quickly within the coming week, and then we're going to give you that one big episode where we give you our last-minute thoughts on the season right before the season begins. But we're going to jump right into things here on our NFL preview, and like I said, we're going to start out west. Fred, let's start with let's start in the NFC. The NFC West was a very interesting division last season. The Rams, who are always, that up-and-coming team, that team that's going to break through, they finally broke through, won the division. They have some high hopes coming into this season, but we're going to start the inverse of, how they finished last year. So we're going to start everything off with the San Francisco 49ers, who finished last season with a record
of 6-10,
an NFC West worst record of 6-10, but they have some things to look forward to. They had some moves they made and some things that they were excited about at the end of last season. So let's get into the coaching and coordinators. Any changes in that department?
No real changes. For me, it's really just a build. They're building on what you see from last year. Kyle Shanahan,
young head coach.
Yeah, very young head coach, and very liked and respected amongst his peers. Very innovative mind, and he has the piece. He has the one piece that every NFL team is looking for. He secured the quarterback, and that's going to change a lot of things going forward.
So we think, Jimmy G, to be fair, has about 297 dropbacks total in his NFL career. He looked pretty good, during his late season run in San Francisco, because at that point, nobody even projected them to be a 6-10 team the way that they were rolling. So, Jimmy G, he was actually the highest graded passer under pressure and on third downs last season. Now, I don't know how much pressure, quote-unquote pressure actually counts for when you were the San Francisco 49ers and you had the record that they had, going into his stint at the end of last year. But, this is key data that's pretty positive going into the season. And it's making everybody think that what they ended up paying Jimmy Garoppolo isn't something that's out of the realm of what his skills are commensurate with. So, we'll see how that plays out.
I think having Ken Norton Jr. coming in, that as far as the defense on the defensive side, because to be honest, this defense is they're building piece by piece, and you add a Richard Sherman, you keep DeForest Buckner in there, you got a Solomon Thomas, linebackers are fine. This defense is slowly becoming something you can really look forward to. So Reuben Foster is going to probably be the main piece. If he can keep his nose clean, this defense could be really good. Really good.
Right. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what they lost. What are some of the key departures for the San Francisco 49ers over the offseason?
Key departures. Carlos Hyde. That was probably the biggest thing I've seen as far as this team is concerned. Running game is going to be huge for them. They don't have great receivers on the offensive side, so you got to be able to run the football. And yeah, we'll talk about his replacement, which I wasn't really high on, but Carlos Hyde isn't a bad running back. And the Cleveland Browns saw that very early on in this very, very, very new preseason. So he can catch the football. He can run between the tackles. He's a dual threat type of back. He can do a little bit of everything. And that's what you really want now in today's NFL. The Adrian Peterson type running backs are kind of going to the wayside. You have to be valuable. So for them, a guy that can take 25, 30 touches a game and impact the game in multiple ways is a big game changer.
Yeah, no doubt. Additions. The team have they have key additions as well. Like I said, replacement to Carlos Hyde. They signed Jerick McKinnon to a pretty nice deal in free agency. And, the thought is that he's going to upgrade the backfield. Even though I agree with you with the fact that Carlos Hyde is a pretty good running back, the running game for the San Francisco 49ers last year was one of the worst in the league. Well, let me put it this way: not the actual running game, but the backfield was one of the worst in the league in the passing game. And Jerick McKinnon certainly, checks off that box at least. Even if you don't look at him as a bruising runner or anything, he will make the passing game, as far as the backs are concerned, a little more potent in the San Francisco offense. That would always be a young quarterback like a Jimmy Garoppolo when he has the option to pop the ball out to his running backs. You need good running backs, good tight ends. And we all know the most important thing is the fat boys up front. Now, the 49ers this season are going to be playing with 3 new starters on the offensive line. You got Weston Richburg, who's going to be taking over at center. Mike McGlinchey is going to be playing right tackle, and he's a rookie. And Joshua Garnett, Jonathan Cooper will be battling for the starting right guard spot. So either way, either guy who wins, there's still going to be a new face on this offensive line. An offensive line with a lot of potential, Fred, but being this young and not being a unit that's been together before, like how concerned are you with all of these new faces on the offensive line in front of a, fairly new, fairly young quarterback?
I'm not really concerned. I think for me, when I look at this offensive line and how they're changing things, they're getting a little bit lighter. They're being the days of the old, heavy-footed, slow offensive linemen are going away. You got to remember the name of your head coach, Shanahan. What did Shanahan love to do? His dad loved to do. What did he like to do? Is they wanted to have a light offensive line. They wanted to be able to run that zone scheme that made so many running backs in Denver look so great. They want to be able to let guys get up the field, one cut and go. So you can't have heavy-footed guys. You can't have these slow, mammoth linemen. You want athletes out there. And I think guys like Mike McGlinchey, I think he'll fit in perfectly at right tackle. I think a guy like a Brandon Fusco being gone, and now you're bringing in a Weston Richburg, perfect. That's perfect. So, yeah, you're bringing in a guy like a Jerick McKinnon, like we talked about. He's more of that slashing type of back, a guy that can just get inside and get upfield. So that's going to help him. Now, granted, from the passing game standpoint, that may not be the best thing in the world, but you have these pass rushers, these Von Millers, these Michael Bennett, these Joey Bosa's, guys like that that's what they like. They want a guy that's a little bit light and doesn't put a lot of weight in his pockets. Yeah, you're a great athlete, but he can match up a little bit better because the weight differential is a little bit different, so he can bully him a little bit. But from what you saw in Atlanta, his days in Atlanta, Kyle Shanahan, that's what they're trying to build with this offense.
Okay. Now we'll talk a little more about the offense in a minute, but just another key addition, second-round pick Dante Pettis, because you did mention wide receiver being pretty much a weakness on this team. Shanahan believes that Pettis can play all three receiver positions effectively, but you basically have to find a way to get him, involved in this current group of wide receivers, which, I don't think is going to be rocket science, considering I don't personally think that's a strength of this team. Do you think he can make an impact early on, especially with his versatility?
I do. Going back to my days of putting my college hat back on, I saw Dante Pettis make tons of plays at Washington, and he can play inside, he can play outside. He can do everything for you. Granted, receiver is a little bit different in the NFL because those windows aren't as open. DBs, they're literally jamming you at all points of the game. They're being physical with you, so that's going to be something he's going to have to work with. Of course, receivers is one of the toughest positions next to probably quarterback, maybe tackle, to learn in this league, so the transition's a little bit different. So he's going to have his learning pains, his growing pains, but I think because this isn't a strength for them, I think that's going to be a big time help to him because he'll be able to get touches early.
Okay, so what do you think of this offense overall? Like I said, we have the three new faces on the offensive line. You have Jerick McKinnon as the lead back in the backfield. You got Jimmy G at the front of it all, and the receiving core that we keep alluding to is, not necessarily a strength on the team. But what do you think of the offense overall?
I think it's a solid offense. It's not a great offense. One guy that we left out of there is George Kittle. He at tight end, a very underrated young tight end. He's going to have a pretty good impact on this team. He's going to be that safety valve, that guy that Jimmy G goes for throughout the season. When he's in trouble, that's what he'll look to. I don't expect this team to just put up eye-popping numbers. I think they'll be consistent. They may struggle a little bit early. This isn't a team that you want to get in a shootout with. And the one thing that's a little bit of a disadvantage to Jimmy Garoppolo coming in last year late, he's not surprising anybody anymore. We saw a little bit of him in New England, and we saw a little bit of him at the end of the year. So now coaches have film on him, and we all know film doesn't lie. So teams have been grinding away trying to unlock the key to stifling this young, really, really successful quarterback so far.
Okay, so what about on the defensive side of the ball? I think the weakness of this team last year was the defensive backfield. Of course, they addressed that with Richard Sherman, of all people. Richard Sherman was one of the more outspoken guys when they used to play against the 49ers, as far as the receivers, Michael Crabtree and Colin Kaepernick and those guys were concerned. He was a thorn in those guys' side. But did you look at the defensive backfield as a weakness for this team last year as well? And what do you think the addition of Sherman and what they did in the draft on the defensive side of the ball, like what do you think that'll do for this defense overall, especially the defensive backfield?
Yeah, I do. Richard Sherman brings a championship pedigree to this team, and he brings a number one corner. Now, how long will he be a number one corner? That's the question. But when you bring in a guy like a Richard Sherman, you have a guy like Othello Witherspoon on the other side, a big corner, you can tell that they're trying to go with this Seattle Seahawks type of mold. That's the thing that we know. The NFL is a copycat league. Many teams are going, whether it's the 49ers, whether it's the Chargers. These teams are, even Jacksonville, they're all trying to replicate what the Legion of Boom was. And it's crazy how that team was. We know them for their secondary, but their strength was their defensive line. So for me, Richard Sherman, yeah, we're going to see how good he really is now that he doesn't have a Cam Chancellor back there. He doesn't have an Earl Thomas who makes a lot of things go away. He can take risks that he normally wouldn't take. We'll see how that works out for him. And an Achilles injury.
We'll have a Tavarius Moore at some point.
there's a big drop off from that from Seattle. And for me, when I look at this, I say the secondary isn't as bad as it was, but we don't know what Richard Sherman's going to be now that he's coming off an Achilles injury. Achilles for a corner, yeah, he'll be good to go, but he's going north. He's in his late 20s. He's getting into those 30s, and the later you get into your career, bigger corner, he's not always been the fastest guy. He struggles. We've seen the videos of his own teammates just burning him. And granted, Richard Sherman's not a one-on-one, man-to-man coverage guy. You want him in zone. You want him with safety help behind him. You want him to be physical. But if you just put him on a little fast guy, you're going to be in a world of hurt. I think the strength of this defense is it's not the secondary. I think it lies on their defensive line.
Right. All right. So, no, I definitely agree with that. No, the strength, being as though this was the weakest unit on the defense last season, it would be too easy to just say, all right, they in a big name like Richard Sherman, so now it's going to be the strength. No, they still have to show and prove. Richard Sherman is on the other side of 30 at this point, coming off of an Achilles injury. Mm-hmm. The 49ers are even being careful with him off season. So there's a lot that's going to have to play out here, a lot to be proven. Let's talk about their schedule for a minute. Any key games on the schedule that stand out to you? Like, I don't want to be cliche about it, but when you're 6-10, pretty much every game's a key game in my opinion. But, it's not going to be sledding as they have to play the AFC West and the NFC North this season. And that's on top of, playing in your own division with a couple of teams like the Los Angeles Rams, who seem to be going for it right now. The Seattle Seahawks, who are, still formidable, even though I think most pundits' opinion of them is that they're probably going to be on the decline. But the schedule is not favorable for a 49ers team that's trying to rebuild and get out of the basement. But the NFL, more than any league we know, is filled with parity. And this is the league where going from worst to first or from worst to a little bit better is easier to do than any other league. So any key games that you see on this schedule for them?
Right out the gate. Right out the gate. You get to see the best defense in football right now in Minnesota, and they have to travel to Minnesota. And by the way, it's a 1 o'clock start, so that's really like maybe an 11 o'clock start for them, 12 o'clock start for them. So for me, right out the gate, this first 4 to 5, really their first 6 games will tell us a lot, because you're facing not only you're going to Minnesota, you got to go to Kansas City. And we'll get to Arrowhead in a little bit, but that's going to be a very fun team to watch. You got either you're playing against one of the best defenses or one of the most explosive offenses at least once, and you see. I'm not calling them the Purple People Eaters yet, but they're a damn good defense in Minnesota. You got Matthew Stafford. You know what kind of game you're in for when you go to Detroit. You get to see Pat Mahomes and the rest of that high-powered offense. Joey Bosa and company, defense is pretty good. Arizona, we don't really know what we're getting from them. So
Right.
I'm really reserved, but I got a good feeling. The defense is going to show up this year.
There you go, Packers and Rams.
Packers. That's a
murderer's row
schedule in the first 7 weeks. So I think you'll get a mixed bag. I think you'll see like maybe a 4-3 start, maybe a 3-4 type of start. If anything better than that, if they go 5-2, somehow they pull some kind of trick out of their hat, watch out, because that's probably the most daunting schedule so far in the league this year. It gets easier down the way.
And not to toot my own team's horn or anything, but Kyle Shanahan better be deep into some NFC Championship game film right now and for the rest of the preseason leading up to that Vikings game. That's all I got to say. All right, so quick prediction on the 49ers. We don't have to go exact if you don't want, but quick prediction on their record. Well, we're going to save like any playoff seeding, any wild card, any stuff like that. We're going to save that for our final show before the season starts. We're going to tell you who our, playoff teams are and wild cards, the NFC Championship, AFC Championship, Super Bowl, and all that. Right now, we're just going to throw out records. Doesn't have to be an exact. You can give me a range if you want for it.
I think this team will be a little bit better than last year. They won't. Let's just say Jimmy G will continue to impress us. The defense will be a little bit better than what we expect. I think most people expect maybe like an 8-8, 9-7 type of team. Those first 7 games will tell us a hell of a lot because they're not the deepest team, and if injuries start happening, this could be a bad year. And a bad year isn't a bad thing for this team because they are building. If you're going to be bad, just be bad and go pick up a really nice draft pick. So I think you're going to see a little bit better than what they were last year, which was a 6-10 team. So I would say anywhere between 8 to 10 wins, probably more along the 8-win kind of mark, 8-8, maybe 9-7.
And that's exactly where I'm going with it. I'm going to say 8-8 or around that area is going to be my guess because, at this point, they're going to improve, in my opinion. I don't think all of their improvements is necessarily going to show up all on the win-loss record because at this point, what they did at the end of last season, they're not sneaking up on anybody. So they're going to have to earn this improvement. And what's going on at the top of their division, it might put a halt to their immediate plans. All right, so that's the San Francisco 49ers, and we spent way too much time on the first team. We got to try to streamline.
Let's ramp it up.
Okay.
Let's ramp it up.
All right, so let's go to the Seattle Seahawks, who finished last season. I'm sorry, the Arizona Cardinals, who finished last season with a record of 8-8. All right, some changes in Cardinal land. You want to talk about coaches, coordinators, anything that changed over there?
Head coach Bruce Arians gone. I miss Coach Arians. The offensive side of the ball is no longer a focal point, or at least we think so. Coach Steve Wilks coming over from Carolina, that's going to be huge. Defensive side of the ball, they're going to try to get after quarterbacks. Secondary still the same. For me, what I want to see is this team improve overall. This team, for the last few years, allegedly has had a window of success, and they underachieved so much over the last 3 to 4 years, and it was very disappointing. So I really want to see what this new coaching staff can bring. Some guys left over, maybe somebody get Larry Legend at the Super Bowl or get him out of there and help him out a little bit. Send him somewhere he can win something.
All right. Key departures. Who did they lose from this Cardinals team besides the head coach?
Besides your head coach, key departure. Carson Palmer, done. For me, granted, his career wasn't terrible. I think injuries kind of derailed him a bit, so that's going to be something you have to worry about. But no real losses no significant losses from this team. I think really you're getting a lot of guys back from injury, and that's going to really help them out in a season where they're going through a little bit of change.
Right. I mean, because I would have, there was a time where I would have thought that Carson Palmer's departure would be considered a big loss. But at this point in his career, I don't really think, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I think they needed a Carson Palmer type on the team. But where he was, leading up to the end of his tenure here, I don't think he was really helping the team enough for him to be considered a big loss.
Maybe the Honey Badger was a big loss for them too, because even though he's one of the most injured guys I've ever seen, he's on the field, he's a complete game changer. Has been since his days going back to LSU. So I definitely have to put him there in that key loss as well.
I mean, and injuries were crazy anyway, because they had 3 quarterbacks who logged 300+ snaps last season. So, that's not where you want to be when you're trying to fight for a playoff spot, at least a wild card spot on a team. Carson Palmer was replaced by Sam Bradford, who signed a 1-year deal. It seems to be his thing now, just go and be a bridge for now and to what the team wants to do in the future. Sam Bradford will always seem to have a job. They did have to draft Josh Rosen out of UCLA, so Sam Bradford might end up being that bridge to the Josh Rosen era. But we'll see what they do. In other terms of additions, this is not an addition if the person wasn't on the team, but they are getting back, arguably, I'm not saying he is, but arguably the best running back in the league. If he's not, the best, he's one of the league's premier running backs because of his versatility and what he can do. So David Johnson will be back in the fold. Anybody else you could think of as a key addition that will, help this team?
Key additions. They're going to get Marcus Golden back on the other side, on the defensive side, and that's going to really help out because him and Chandler Jones make up a very underrated pass rushing duo. And we all know there's 2 jobs you have to have in the NFL. You have to have a quarterback who can score, and you got to go get 2 people that can go get after that same quarterback that can score. If you can have those 2 things, you have a very, very good chance of having a decent football team if you can build around that.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the offense of this team. Now, there's a few position battles. The main position battle is what we kind of mentioned earlier: Sam Bradford versus Josh Rosen. Are they going to go with the stopgap, the bridge guy, or are they going to go straight to their rookie? That will all be hashed out in the preseason. We'll see what the decision is going to end up being. At wide receiver, after Larry Fitzgerald, I think basically what you have is a bunch of people battling, not just for positions, but, to where they are in the actual order of things. We all know Larry Fitzgerald, the veteran, is their number 1 receiver, but then behind him you have Bryce Butler, Christian Kirk, Chad Williams, J.J. Nelson. You even have a position battle going on in the offense as far as the center goes, and that's A.Q. Shipley versus Mason Cole. So with these position battles going in the preseason, who do you give the edge to in some of these? And also, what do you think about this offense overall, or at least the potential of this offense?
I think this receiving core, we can kind of start there. They're going to have to help their quarterback out. Christian Kirk is a guy that I've watched him since his days at Texas A&M. I actually called him Odell Beckham light. I think it's a bit of a stretch. You see flashes of what he can be. Really good slot receiver, a guy that can really change how an offense can roll, because you got to have a guy that can be dynamic out of the slot. And also he has some ability on the outside, so you can take the pressure off of Larry Fitzgerald, who's he's still a really good player, but he's aging. sometimes I wonder, is he aging because he just keeps making plays and making people look good. But also, for me, this offense goes as far as either Carson Palmer. Sam Bradford, who, if he's healthy and he's right, he's a good player. But when's the last time we actually said Sam Bradford was healthy and he was looking good? I mean, that's like a one-time – that's like week 1, week 2, and then you say somebody's going to fall on his shoulder, somebody's going to hit him in the knee. He's very fragile, despite being as good as he is, and I think that's possibly why he's the bridge. And Josh Rosen showed some good improvement, but that offensive line is a really bad unit, and he's going to be running for his life, and he's not the most mobile of guys. So that could be a big problem. They may want to address that in the upcoming drafts because they're going to be bad for at least the foreseeable future. So that might be something they want to improve on.
Okay, so well, we all know, with David Johnson's return, if he can return back to the same player he was, he always gives a quarterback a boost because he's a threat to run the ball. And he's definitely a threat to catch the ball out of the backfield. I mean, he's somebody that we talk about in the vein of potentially having 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving. But, he would have to come back in the same, shape that he was before his injury. So that remains to be seen. And your comments about Sam Bradford, man, I think his career, he's just going to go down as that guy that we've always talked about his potential and what he could have been, what he should have been if it weren't for this, if it weren't for that. Never will there be a day, for anybody who's paying attention and knows football, never will there be a day that anybody would say Sam Bradford is or was a bum. But Sam Bradford could have been way much more than what it seems like he's become in the NFL. That's kind of like a journeyman stopgap bridge guy. Last of the giant rookie NFL quarterback contracts.
Yeah, but, Sam Bradford has
shout out to
more
him.
money out of
good
contracts
than right.
Ever remember.
All right, so let's go to the defensive side of the ball here. A position battle to look out for on the defensive side is the defensive left tackle, which is Olsen Pierre versus Robert. I've never been able to.
Robert Nkemdiche, yeah.
Robert Nkemdiche. It's just a situation where the N is silent. But it's three of them battling for that spot. Olsen Pierre, Robert Nkemdiche, and Rodney Gunter. Do you see their defensive front as a strength, and who has the edge in this particular battle?
I do. I think this is gonna be a make or break season for Robert Nkemdiche because he was supposed to be a much better player than he was than we see right now. Olsen Pierre, I've had a chance to see him. He's from my Miami Hurricanes, so I got a chance. I didn't expect this from him. He was more of a backup type player, a guy that didn't really make a ton of plays, but he's one of those cases of a guy that gets to the NFL, he gets put in a different scheme, and things work out for him. This defensive front is pretty good. Now, granted, they are a very thin unit. Once you start rotating guys, that's when things start kind of falling apart. But their frontline guys, your whether it's Nkemdiche, Gunter, Pierre, whether it's Golden on one side or Chandler Jones on the other side, who, like I said earlier, is one of the more underrated pass rushing tandems in the league. Those guys get after quarterbacks. They stop the run really well. But once injuries start hitting, that's going to be where we're going to have a problem. And depth is always one of those things. Some teams have it, some teams don't. And if these guys start finding depth, these guys are going to have to be in very great shape. These guys are going to have to be in very, very they're going to have to be focused every week because they're not coming off the field. That's really just going to have to be how it is. I don't know if that's going to be something they can sustain in that division, much less throughout the season.
Yeah, and what I want to watch for, especially in that defensive backfield, because as you did mention when we talked about key departures, Honey Badger and Tramon Williams both signed elsewhere. Tramon Williams signed elsewhere, and Honey Badger was outright released. Patrick Patterson, like, who's he going to be running with back there? Because you have a cornerback battle going on back there as well. Be the corner opposite of Patrick Patterson, Jamar Taylor, Brandon Williams, and Beanie Binkwee. I can't pronounce his name either. I'm always messing up. Sorry for my African brothers, man. Fred knows these names way better than me since he's a college football guru. He's been following these guys and knowing how to pronounce their names for a few years now. But you have that battle going on the other side to see who's going to run opposite of Patrick Peterson. That's a lot of pressure in running opposite a guy like that and losing two of the guys that you ended up losing. So this defense is going to be something interesting to watch. Again, like I said, for the 49ers, especially battling in this division where the two teams at the top don't really seem to be ready to relinquish their positions, especially the one at the very top. So it's going to be an uphill climb for the Arizona Cardinals. Some of their key games on the schedule, and like I said, this division is playing the AFC West and the NFC North. So they have basically the same murderer's row on their schedule as the 49ers do, but I think coming out of the gate, it may be a little bit softer because they don't get some of the teams like till week 6 or after. But they out of the gate, they get Washington, and then they have to go up against the Rams in week 2. But winnable games, you're coming out with Washington, Rams, Bears, Seahawks, 49ers before you get to the Vikings, Broncos, 49ers again. I mean, I think in their first 8 games, if this team is going to show any life, this could be a stretch where they could carve out some good wins and actually go into the second half of the season with a winning record. What are your thoughts on their schedule and any key games?
Schedule first 2 games are going to be pretty tough. Washington is. I actually have a good feeling about Washington. I don't know what it is.
Every single year.
Something about this team. It might just be the addition of Alex Smith. We'll talk about those guys later. For me, those 2 teams are Washington's interesting, and of course, LA is the Rams. They're the hot team right now. But the rest of the early of the season, these guys really have a chance. I only see one game that's really not winnable, and that's just on paper. Vikings, that's just not a winnable game for these guys. The murderer's row that they're going to see at the end of the year is going to really, really test the football team. I mean, you see the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Packers, the Lions, the Falcons, Rams, and then Seahawks to finish the season. You go from some of the best offensive football in the league to now you see a team that's a little bit more complete in the Falcons and the Packers, and then you get to finish the season against the Seahawks. And by the way, you got to go to Seattle. It's still Seattle regardless, and it's still Russell Wilson running that offense, and some of those guys are still there. So you just don't know, and who knows? If this team's bad, they could have tacked it in a long time ago. But once you get to week 10, especially if those injuries have been hitting, like I think they probably will, it could be a very early. You could see a lot of Josh Rosen early, and he's going to get tested, either having to put points up or that defense is going to have to really put some weights in their pockets. And I don't know if they can do not this team, not right now.
That Falcons game, it raises eyebrows a little bit, and it shows you you're like, damn, we finished 3rd last year, and we still have the Falcons on our damn schedule. Because people forget, in the NFC South, 3 teams made the playoffs. So as much respect as everybody had for the Falcons as defending NFC champs, they finished 3rd in the division. Yet they still made the playoffs. So team like Arizona, who's trying to get out of an 8-8 hole, they got to face a team like the Falcons who got into the playoffs and were pretty much favored over the number 1 seed when they did get into the playoffs and almost beat the number 1 seed. I was like, yeah, sorry for you, Arizona. As far as predictions go, I think Arizona is going to fall back a little bit on that 8-8, and I'm gonna pencil them in for around 6 or 7 wins. I'll say 6-10 for the Arizona Cardinals. What do you think about how they'll end up?
Roger Goodell usually does this a lot better than I do, but with the 5th pick, 6th pick, 7th pick, 8th pick, 9th pick, somewhere along there, the Arizona Cardinals select. I'll just leave it at that.
All right. So there you have it. That's your Arizona Cardinals. The next team up on our NFC West division, and my bad, because I think the format we wanted to do was go NFC, AFC, NFC, AFC. We'll do that in future shows, but for this one, we'll just do the 2 divisions. Let's go to Seattle, who finished with a 9-7 record last season. Any notable changes on the coaching staff?
No real noticeable changes. This team is just things. It's the roster side of things that really boggle me. This team was built for a few years, and they're tearing things down and bringing it back.
All right. What about key departures?
Oh, let's see. We can start at Richard Sherman. We can start at Cam Chancellor. Eddie Lacy's gone. Jermaine Kearse is gone. Earl Thomas wants out.
Whole team.
Michael Bennett's gone. Cliff Avril's gone. Things are getting. Jimmy Graham is gone. This is getting very, very, very bad, very, very fast.
So is it me, or are we going to have to find out how good Russell Wilson really is this season? That's how I'm looking at this.
Yeah, we've been seeing this happen. We've seen this kind of happen over the years since they won their first Super Bowl and then went back again. They just keep taking pieces away, and guys are falling off. And, that's going to be something we're going to have to see. Is Russell really this good? Which I think he is, but you got to give your guy pieces. I mean, not everybody can just be, a superstar Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady type quarterback where you can just give him nothing and he just makes good with it.
All right, so it has to be something on the positive side, though. What are some of the key additions that they made?
I look towards the draft.
New wide receiver in the fold. They got some draft picks.
Yeah, for me, I look at the draft for this one. Shaquem Griffin. He's the great story, the feel good story. I mean, guy loses his hand as a kid, but finds a way, fights through every bit of adversity, and finds his way onto the same team as his brother. That must be great to play with your flesh and blood, man. And you get to go to war with your family, great. And he's gonna make plays. It won't be a huge impact early. It's not like he's Bobby. It's not like Bobby Wagner's just giving up here and he's just taking over. Nah, he's gonna be a special teamer early, and then he'll make his ways throughout the team and make plays that way. He'll end up probably being a starter towards the end of the year, but he's gonna be an impact guy that you're gonna want to watch because from everything I've seen in preseason, the kid's a baller. And I think that's going to really be something that they can start a new wave on defense and just bring that defense back. It won't be the Legion of Boom anymore, but just maybe, he can be part of that new wave.
Over. Those days be over. But yeah, we'll talk about the defense in a minute. Legion of No More Boom. So let's talk about the offense first, though. Okay, so Brandon Marshall has come over. Brandon Marshall isn't the same threat that he used to be. I still think a healthy Brandon Marshall is still an upgrade on most people's receiving core, especially if you're not asking him to be the Brandon Marshall of old. But what are your thoughts overall on the offense?
This team they want to spread you out. They want to still run the football, but they just don't have the pieces up front, and it just seems like it's they keep subtracting pieces from Russell. It's like at some point, is Russell he's going to lead your team in passing, he's going to lead your team in rushing, and maybe might have to throw him at receiver too and tell someone else to throw him the ball because he's got to do it all. I mean, Doug Baldwin's a really good player, and on any other team, he's a stud. But on this team, he's kind of a guy. I hate calling him just a guy, but he's the go-to guy. He's a go-to player for them, and he has to be because you get rid of Jermaine Kearse. Tyler Lockett, really good player, but he's more of a specialty, deep down the field kind of guy. You don't have a Jimmy Graham anymore to bail you out of crazy situations. Offensive line not great. Chris Carson might have something, but for the most part, this team is going to struggle offensively, and they weren't the best offensive team over the last few years. That defense carried them, but now more than ever, Russell's going to be running around trying to make plays, and it's going to be fun to watch from his perspective.
Here's my question: have they found a running back? Because over the past few years, like they've just popped. It's just been name after name back there, basically for the last 2 years. So they did use their first round draft pick on running back Rashad Penny. In addition to him, there's a few other dudes who are. Yeah, there's a few other people who are expected to see some time and get the ball, and that's C.J. Prosise, D.J. McKissick, Mike Davis, Chris Carson, guys like that. Can this be a solidified position is what I'm trying to get at, because over the past 2 years, it really hasn't been, especially since the retirement of Marshawn Lynch. And then, we all know he came back to play for his hometown team. But since then, there hasn't been it just hasn't been any solidarity at the spot. What do you think?
I think it's a lot of the same. A lot of the rotation of backs. The curse of Marshawn Lynch, or the artist formerly known as Marshawn Lynch, however you want to look at that. Ever since that goal line play where they didn't hand him the ball, there have been problems. But running back is tied to the offensive line, and if the offensive line isn't there, you have Dwayne Brown, but who else? And he's aging fast. Who else is there? Russell's leading your team in rushing yards at this point. There's no one there to really take the reins and say, this is my job. And I think that's going to be a lot of the same going forward.
Okay, cool. All right, let's go back over to that defense. We spoke of the fact that there's no more Legion of Boom. You got Richard Sherman signing with the Niners, Cam Chancellor retiring. Earl Thomas is not happy. They're getting, their corner play. They're going to have Byron Maxwell, who actually had a pretty decent season last season. Shaquille Griffin looks like he's going to be the guy that probably steps in for Sherman. Bradley McDougal is probably going to be the replacement for Chancellor. So it doesn't seem like a bad unit, but when you go from what they had, it seems like there may be some growing pains, there may be some struggles. What are your overall thoughts on the defense? Huge step back. If I'm any team that sees the Seattle Seahawks on my schedule, I'm attacking the secondary all day, every day, and I might mix in a little bit of a run there because they still have some guys on the D line, whether it's Frank Clark, Jerron Reed. You still have some guys down there, Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright patrolling the middle, but that secondary, Earl Thomas. If Earl Thomas if he's checked out, they're in trouble because he's the unquestioned leader of a young secondary that may not be as good as we think they are. A secondary that he doesn't want to be on.
Yeah.
Unless it's for a whole lot of money. So, they definitely have some issues back there. And, Byron Maxwell, his best years came as a result of being able to play with the Legion.
Exactly. Exactly.
He's been kind of exposed ever since he left the fray. Like I said, he did have a solid year last year, but you bring him, he's back here, and you expect him to kind of be one of the leaders on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know how well that's going to play out for you. But key games on their schedule. Coming out of the gate, they're dealing with the Broncos, the Bears, the Cowboys, Cardinals, Rams, and Raiders. I actually think, the first half of their schedule is actually quite manageable. But I'm not really sure what we're going to get from this team. So even though you look at the teams and you're not really staring down the barrel of a shotgun, when you look at who they have to play, I don't really know what to expect from them offensively or defensively this year. So a schedule that doesn't look that demanding could end up being demanding. What do you think about key games on this schedule?
This game is, for me, when I see this schedule, I see 4 of the first 6 on the road, and then you see, and it's just them being on the road a lot early is going to really test this team. Lucky for them, you have the likes of Case Keenum, Mitchell Trubisky, and Dak Prescott early. Josh Rosen, Derek Carr, and Goff are pretty. Those guys are decent quarterbacks, and Stafford maybe and Phillip Rivers. The meat of your schedule is from roughly week 5 to week 9, maybe week 5 to 11. If you can survive that, I think they have a good chance. If they can win early, they can win those first few 4 to 6 games. If they can start out 4-2, we might have a chance here, because on the back end, you get Jimmy G twice, you get the new look purple people eaters. But I don't believe in Captain Kirk. Anybody that knows me knows I don't believe in him. And but I think the front end and back end of the schedule is very manageable. It's those games against like the Raiders, the Lions, the Chargers, the Packers. Right. You gotta hope you can kind of stay in those type of games, and your defense maybe can hold up. The good part is a lot of your home games are towards the end of the year against teams like the Vikings, and the Packers, so you can take advantage of that.
Take advantage of your 12th man with some of the better teams. I think the positive in that first 6 games, because their bye week is week 7. So in that first 6 weeks before the bye, when you talked about their travel schedule, I think the only positive in that travel schedule is the fact that you don't have any East Coast. The closest you're going to get to the East Coast is Chicago in the Midwest. So that's going to be a couple of hours difference for the schedule.
And it's a Monday nighter, so you get a little extra time.
Right. So you still get the extra time, and it doesn't hurt you like it would to run over to the East Coast and play a 1:00 game, for instance. I know the league is trying to cut back on how many times they, have West Coast teams do that anyway. But, yeah, they're going to the Broncos, Bears, Cardinals, Raiders. So the schedule, even though, you're on the road for the first 6 games, at least you're not, way on the road. So, we'll see how it plays out. I'll let you go first with the prediction, 2018 prediction for the Seattle Seahawks.
I think this team is going to be a lot like last year. I think you'll see anywhere between, I'll say 7. This team could be both sides of the spectrum. They could be a 7-9 team. They could also be a 9-7 team, because simply put, they have Russell Wilson. And he's a dangerous person. See what I did there? Dangerous. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think he could be a very, very important piece, and he can stay healthy, which he's shown us he can. He can lead this team to a 9-7 record. Now, granted, 9-7 doesn't guarantee you making the playoffs, but 9-7 also means that you've had a pretty successful year, especially with all the losses that they've had.
Right. I'm looking at a 9-7. I don't go 9-7. 10-6. I go 9-7, 8-8. So either they take a small step back as they try to gel with the new look of their team, or they stay exactly the same.
Is Pete Carroll on the hot seat at this point? If anything, if this season goes south, because it's like this team keeps going declining.
Yeah, I wouldn't. If my prediction is correct, I don't see his seat heating up that much. But you use the terminology "goes south." If it goes south, then there may be something to talk about. If they end up six wins, 5 wins, or something like that, like even with a new look, you still have one of the better quarterbacks in the league. You still have some names on that team, so somebody's going to look at you funny if you fall off that much. So I don't see a hot seat because I don't see them going down to like 4, 5, 6 wins. I think 8, 9, possibly 10, but I'm in the 8, 9 win range, so I don't see Carroll's seat heating up all that much. All right, so let's go over to the AFC. We're going to do the AFC West before we get out of here, and of course, like I said, we're going to do it inverse order of how they finished last season. That means we will be starting with the 5-11 Denver Broncos. Man, 2 years removed from a Super Bowl championship, and they're 5-11, struggling to find a signal caller and basically wasting away the defense that they have on that team. Coaching and anything on the coaching staff that raised your eyebrows?
Nothing on the coaching staff. Kind of like Seattle, this team is it's roster turnover that really is affecting this team. I think the coaching isn't really the issue just yet.
All right. Then who did they lose?
From Aqib Talib, that's probably the biggest one. I don't really look at it.
I'm tripping over here because we forgot the best team in the NFC West.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we.
Right.
We
rewind. Rewind real quick, and we have to go to. This is interesting to talk about. I've been waiting to talk about these dudes all season.
You know what that means?
Sorry about that, Denver.
We
just had to hit Denver with a Kanye. We're gonna let you finish, Denver, but I gotta let you know the Los Angeles Rams are the best team in the NFC West. All right, so let's go back to the Rams. We need that rewind sound. All right, They finished with a record of 11-5 last season, won the division, made the playoffs. In the playoffs, they showed that they were still a young team up and coming. I think it was good enough, though. I think it was a step that they needed. It's time to take another step this year, and they built. I'll talk about that in a second, but first, anything on the coaching staff that of note?
No real changes as far as major pieces on their coaching staff. Sean McVay showed us last year that he's the main piece. He's the difference in what this team needed. Jeff Fisher should have been gone a long time ago. And I get into arguments with people all the time about quarterbacks who played under Jeff Fisher, who I get into the Nick Foles argument with people. I get into the Jared Goff argument with people. You see what people look like when they play under Jeff Fisher and what they look like when they leave Jeff Fisher. And Jared Goff is a great example of that. We'll talk about him in just a few seconds. But who did the Rams lose? Because really, their offseason was all about who they picked up. So, did they lose anybody of note, and does it even matter? Tavon Austin, I guess. I'm really not sure that's something they're really upset about. He's replaceable.
And has been replaced. That's all that you can really think of note?
Really, yeah, Tavon Austin's really is as dynamic as he was. There's another guy back there named Todd Gurley who'll make you forget who Tavon Austin is.
Right. And they picked up Brandon Cooks via trade with your Patriots, immediately signed him to an extension, 5-year deal that's going to keep him in Los Angeles, through 2023 or as long as they want them. Man, they added a lot on the defensive end as well. Some of the additions, Aqib Talib, who else did they add over there?
Ndamukong
Suh.
Sam Shields. This team went for broke. They
it's kind of like who didn't they add? This is Dream Team Philadelphia Eagles 2011, probably a better version, and the team probably was better going into making all of those pickups than the Eagles were in 2011. But I don't see this falling on its face like the Philadelphia Eagles did when they went for it that particular year. This is very interesting to see this team. I'm waiting to see this team in action. Let's talk about the offense first. Now, you talked about Todd Gurley, who just got his money. Brandon Cooks just got his money. Jared Goff, who I spoke about earlier, who in his rookie year, before playing 7 games as the starter, Jeff Fisher, who generally doesn't play rookie quarterbacks, was reluctant to give him his shot. And when he did, the offense was so conservative, the offense was so bad, he really didn't look good. And there were a lot of people out there, the people who like to jump to quick conclusions, who were about to write him off as a bust. Skip to year 2, when I think he showed you every reason why he was picked number 1 in the NFL draft this season before. Not to say that he's shown to be better than Carson Wentz just yet, or if he'll ever be, but I can see why he was taken at number 1 in a draft where those first 2 quarterbacks, they weren't surefires. You know what I mean? And now both of them are looking pretty good. Once you insert a Sean McVay and get Jeff Fisher out of there, the offense has been hitting on all cylinders. So what do you think of this offense overall with the addition of Cooks, with Gurley in the fold, with another year of experience under the belt of Jared Goff, and just all the surprising moves that they made, man? Like, what do you think about the offense?
Skill guys galore. Jared Goff should never complain about anybody, whether it's Todd Gurley, whether it's Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks. Cooper Kupp is a guy no one really knows about yet. They really don't have a tight end that Gerald Everett is a guy I want to watch, but I want to see a little bit more. John Kelly, the draft pick out of Tennessee, he's an Alvin Kamara type. When you can get guys like that in late rounds, that's huge, especially the fact that you can kind of spell Todd Gurley and so he doesn't just get run into the ground, especially since you paid him now, you kind of want to conserve him. Offensively, the only thing I see, and you know how we feel about fat people here, their fat people aren't really, that's not the best unit in the world. Andrew Whitworth isn't getting any younger. I want to see them improve on the offensive line, and that will probably happen over the next couple of years while they have this window before they'll have to retool a bit because of contracts. But there's a guy on the other side of the ball they got to pay, and there's the quarterback you got to make sure he gets paid too. So if they can find some help on that offensive line so that you don't have to use magic tricks on offense to make things go, because they did a lot of smoke and mirrors last year and it worked, but teams will be ready for these smoke and mirrors next year or this coming year. So that's probably my only gripe, but you can kind of find your way around it. This team is gonna be explosive.
All right, so let's talk about the defensive side of the ball, and this is where they made most of their improvements. And when I say improvements, I'm talking about names because you never know how people are going to gel. But they're a scary defense. They started out as a scary defense. They were already good with Aaron Donald leading the way as possibly the best defensive tackle in football. But they traded for Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib. They have they signed Sam Shields. They extended the contract of Nickel Roby Coleman. They signed Ndamukong Suh. Like, on paper, this is a very scary team. This is a very scary defense on paper do you think that the paper is going to translate over to the football field?
Initially, yes. On paper, this team scares everyone because now you can start building around the pieces around those star players, the Michael Brockers of the world. Those guys, he's going to eat a lot. The Mark Barons of the world, they can eat a lot. The thing is, there's no depth, and that's going to be the problem. Once those guys come off the field, especially the front seven, that's where you may have a little bit of an issue. But initially, if guys like Sue, guys like Aaron Donald don't come off the field early,
See, but that's what I think, Fred. I think that's the problem with most people who analyze the game. Like when we look at names like this is how, and I have to keep going back to 2011 Eagles. Like we look at the names that they pick up, and we don't think enough about who's behind these people. Because if you look at a lot of teams who've been successful over the past 3 or 4 seasons, they've been the deeper teams. Like you look at the Philadelphia Eagles last year. You look at that defensive line and how they rotated guys in and out of the lineup to the point where you have a highly paid Fletcher Cox, who's one of the better defensive tackles in the league, but he doesn't have to log 90% of the snaps during the regular season. So when the playoffs start, you have a pretty fresh Fletcher Cox to go in there and get after it. Same with Brandon Graham and all those guys. So, depth is key. And we tend to look more at names. I mean, you can't ignore the names that they have on this team. You can't ignore the talent and the star power that they have on this team. But you brought up an excellent point of what do they have behind them, because that's going to ultimately be the determining factor of how great the defense can actually be. So great point right there. All right, so some key games on the schedule. And the Rams come out of the door as the favorites to win this division. They're immediately, going to play the Raiders on the road on their first game. Then they have the Cardinals, Chargers, Vikings, Seahawks, Broncos, Niners, Packers, Saints, Seahawks, Chiefs, and they don't get a bye until week 12. So point out a couple of key games and what you think about, their schedule.
Week 8 versus the Packers, huge. I mean, anytime you get to see Aaron Rodgers, that's going to be a big one. And then you got to follow that up with at Saints. That's going to be huge. And, of course, against your Philadelphia Eagles in Week 15. If it comes down to it, those late season games trying to jockey for position in the playoffs. And I keep saying this Chiefs team, I'm just ready to see what this offense looks like. It's an offensive team versus a defensive team, and I just want to see I just really want to see who wins in it, because we always say defense wins championships, but right. I mean, this is a home game for them. It's going to be a primetime game, and I'm just ready to see that game in Week 11. Chiefs, Rams. It's going to be fireworks on both sides of the ball.
That Eagles game is interesting, Fred, because it's kind of like a replay from last year.
Mm-hmm.
What I believed was a classic game in Week 14 last year, a game that I attended in LA, the game that Carson Wentz went down for the rest of the season. Both of those teams put it out on the line until the very last snap, and they were two of the favorites going. Well, the Eagles, I guess their whole playoff run was about not being the favorite, but they were two of the better teams going into the playoffs record-wise, at least. And it'll be interesting to see where both of those teams are around Week 15 when they have to go at it again. Maybe it'll again be for NFC supremacy, because that's what the stakes were at that particular time, and it was a great game. All right, so 2018 prediction for the Los Angeles Rams. I'll start out with this one. I think I'm gonna drink the Kool-Aid a little bit. Not knowing if the depth is gonna be in place, like you did mention. But I'm gonna go one game up. I'm gonna go 12-4 for the Rams and another division title. What do you think?
I'll say 11-5. I'm not ready to just crown them division champs yet, but 11-5, they'll make the playoffs. I'll give them that much. In a loaded NFC, in a very, very loaded NFC.
You're not ready. You're not ready to crown them yet.
No, I'm not ready.
They are who we thought they were. That's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Now, Coach, I'm not.
They are who we thought they were.
The Bears are who we thought they were, and they're going to be who we think they are. But I'm not. The Bears, they're not making the playoffs. We'll make that now. We'll put that out there now. But yeah, I'm not ready to put the Rams. I got to see something from the 49ers because something tells me this team might be in a battle. It's something, and Russell Wilson still has a chance. So I'm not really ready to say just division champion. Last year was my really one. I gave your Eagles division champs, and I'm not ready to give that out just yet.
All right, and we'll see how it plays out. All right, we're back to you, Broncos. We told you we would get back to you. Sorry for the delay. We already talked about their record from last season. They finished the season at 5-11. No major changes in the coaching staff. Key departures for the Broncos.
Aqib Talib being one, C.J. Anderson being another one. Trevor Siemian. I mean, I don't think anybody in Denver is hurting too bad that he's gone. I'm surprised Paxton Lynch isn't gone yet. I mean, their quarterback situation has been just terrible. This team, ever since that Super Bowl, it just seems like things are getting worse and worse, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better anytime soon. Somehow John Elway keeps finding ways to keep his job.
I mean, but, that's why we have to give teams like yours, Patriots, that's why we have to give them props for everybody out there who wants to scream they're overrated and this and that. The Patriots have been competitive for a long time. They got 5 Super Bowls out of the deal, and the hardest thing after winning Super Bowls or even being in position to win a Super Bowl is to maintain that. Like, people don't understand. Once you win a Super Bowl, everybody's after your roster, everybody's after your coaches, everybody's after you. You're getting everybody's best shot every single week. So that's not an easy thing to do, and a lot of teams show you why what teams like the Patriots have done shouldn't be dismissed as easy as a lot of fans would like to dismiss it. It's not an easy thing to do, man. Denver is showing you that, coming off of a 5-11 record, getting their team, basically getting their carcass picked of all of their, a lot of their stars. What about additions? Who did they add to this Denver team that can at least help them try to get back to where they were?
Quarterback is one of the biggest things. We knew the Peyton Manning experiment was only going to be for a short period of time. Case Keenum, I don't think, is the answer. I think he's a little quarterback that he made good off of a really good defense. Got kind of lucky with the fact of a safety missing a tackle. But for me, that's going to be stability at quarterback. If he can bring that to this team, that's a plus. You gotta pay attention to what they did in the draft with Bradley Chubb. If he can get after quarterbacks and help Von Miller out, that'll be huge, really huge.
Right. So how do you look at Case Keenum as an addition? Like, do you look at this as, they're going to give Case Keenum a chance to be that guy for a while, or do you look at Case Keenum as a stopgap to them, either molding or finding another young stud that they can place there?
I think he's more of the stopgap. He's the experiment to see if he can work out. Again, he's a little quarterback. He's consistent, but he's not special. I saw a little bit of Chad Kelly, the Ole Miss prospect, nephew of Jim Kelly. I'm not super impressed, but I want to see more. It keeps making me want to see more, but they don't have that that elite quarterback that makes everything go. Case Keenum is going to need a lot of Demaryius Thomas. He's going to need a lot of Emmanuel Sanders, Benny Fowler, guys like that to make some things happen. He's not going to be the guy that says, "Hey, I'm going to throw the ball 30 times a game and I'm going to drop 300 yards and 4 touchdowns on every team I play." He's not that guy.
So bottom line, what can this offense do?
They can hope to survive. They can be adequate. They're not explosive after your front line guys. Once you start talking depth at receiver, running back, offensive line, I actually like their offensive line a little bit more than most people do. Whether it's Garrett Bowles at tackle, he brings a little bit of stability there. But for me, this offense is not. They're kind of one of those middle of the pack offenses that may improve slightly simply because of the talent they have, but they're never going to go to the next level.
They have a couple of battles going on the offensive line as well. Right guard Connor McGovern versus Max Garcia, and right tackle Menelik Watson versus Jared Veldheer. So it's like they have some talent up there, but we don't even know for certain, who some of the starters are going to be. You got a battle at the running back position with Devontae Booker and Freeman, tight ends Jeff Herman and Troy Fumagalli. This team, it still seems like this team, at least on the offensive side of the ball, is still a team that's kind of in flux, trying to look for their identity after the success that they had in the 2 Peyton Manning years. Even in the second Peyton Manning year, where they actually won the Super Bowl, offense wasn't exactly,
their forte,
the stats. Yeah, they weren't tearing up the scoreboard.
Von Miller and company really made his life easy.
Right. So let's talk about Von Miller and company. Let's go over to the defensive side of the ball, where we already talked about, losing Aqib Talib. Chris Harris Jr. is now he's the captain of the no-fly zone, if we're even still calling him that. We probably would have to let that go. Since we let go the Legion of Boom, we probably have to be fair and let go of the no-fly zone as well. What do you see from this unit? I think Bradley Roby is going to be stepping in at the number 2 corner. For the third cornerback, you got people battling out for that, like Isaac Yiadom, Tremaine Brock, and Brendan Langley. What do you see from this defense overall? Can Von Miller and the guys keep this team in games?
This team is going to be very interesting. I think the defense, they're going to be a defense and special teams type of team. The offense will kind of hope if they can give you 3, 10 points, 17 points maybe, you might have a chance. Von Miller's going to be Von Miller. Bradley Chubb, if he's even remotely good his first year, and you know how pass rushers are now, if he's getting one-on-ones because of Von Miller getting double teamed, that's going to be something good. If Shane Ray somehow comes around and becomes that third guy, very interested to see how that'll work out. I'm really also hoping Bradley Roby is that guy that he sat there. He was the guy in the nickel because of the fact that you had Aqib Talib and you had Chris Harris Jr., but now he steps into that role. I think he's going to be fine. That whole no-fly zone thing, that thing might still be around. It just may not be to the level that we've seen it with the way that Aqib Talib approaches the game, so aggressive, snatching people's chains and things like that.
So it might be the some fly zone, maybe not the no-fly zone, just a little bit of fly zone. All right, so the defense, it's been their calling card for the past few seasons. Bradley Chubb does make it even more of an interesting prospect to see what this team can do to keep this team in games. Key games on their schedule, speed it up a little for Denver. They're coming out of the gate. They have a bye week in week 10, so they're coming out of the gate against the Seahawks, Raiders, Ravens, Chiefs, Jets, Rams, Cardinals, Chiefs, and Texans before they get a bye week and come out of that to face the Chargers. So any key games, and what do you think about their schedule?
Early season, you see the Chiefs. That's always a great matchup in division. one of the most heated rivalries we've ever seen. This Texans game is going to be very interesting too. I want to see how two really decent defenses, how many points are going to be scored in that game, because they will come at a premium, especially if a J.J. Watt comes back and it's his same good old self. And I think that the Steelers game in Week 12 will tell us a lot about this team. Maybe the Bengals late in the season, the Bengals, somehow they find a way to make somebody's life a little bit harder and somehow make their way into the playoffs somehow. Marvin Lewis, I swear to everything this man has. He has tapes on everybody in the NFL. He knows something about somebody because he still has his job and he makes people's lives a little bit difficult. But this team schedule is not really daunting, especially with the way the games are placed. They're not really daunting, but with the way this team is built, things could go south easy.
So what do you predict?
I think this team will be a 6-10 type of team. I think they can find 6 wins. You can find 6 wins in there.
Yeah, I was thinking too. Like, I'm not big on Case Keenum, but he'll be more steady than what they trotted out there last season. So I'm thinking, with the defense, if they can, remain daunting themselves, I'm thinking 7 or 8 wins for the Broncos this season. 7 or 8 wins.
Anything's better than Trevor Siemian, so that'll help.
We will not be seeing a resurgence of the championship goals that we saw in the years, the couple years preceding last year. So let's move on to the next AFC West team in the schedule. And AFC West, by the way, playing NFC West and the AFC North this season. So let's talk about Oakland. Last season. Anything noticeable to you? Anything notable on the coaching staff?
There's this guy
There's this guy from Monday Night Football.
Yeah, he used to be their coach, and then he wasn't their coach. He won another team a Super Bowl. Then he got fired, and he decided I want to call games now. They call him Chucky. I'm not a fan of him. I think this is going to be a very bad move. And then you gave him 10 years and a lot of money. I mean, I don't get moves. These are Al Davis-like moves. I thought the Raiders were done.
Uh-oh. You hear me, Fred?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. All right. So, So Chuck back in the fray. That was bigger stories of the offseason. They gave him a hell of a lot of money to do this as well. What are some of their key departures on the actual field? Who left? What's going to cause problems for the Raiders?
I don't see any really major losses here. No one of real significance. The one thing I do see is the Marshawn Lynch experiment. Really, it should be a departure, at least by him. And we could, at some point, if they don't pay him, you could see a Khalil Mack being a departure. We still don't know what's going to happen with that. Because how do you not pay this guy?
Right. And so the key additions, who did the Raiders add that's going to do anything to impact their season coming up?
I think it's a lot of the same. They didn't really make a lot of headway. When you talk about major signings, I don't really see anybody that really affects this team. I think they stayed a little bit more. Jon Gruden was really the biggest hire for this team. And of course, you know how I feel about this one. This one, that's a lateral move. I don't really think he's going to be much of an upgrade over a Jack Del Rio, who got this team on the right path after things kind of went a little south. You just give up on your coach after one bad, not even a bad year, a down.
All right. Yeah. Besides the coach, they signed about 18 veterans throughout free agency. None of them are really head turners at this point of their career. You got Doug Martin, you got Jordy Nelson, Rashawn Melvin, Tahir Whitehead, Martavis Bryant will be for
Oakland. That could be interesting. That may be an interesting pickup, but he's one of those guys. Martavis Bryant is one of those guys that he's boom or bust. He's the most talented player on your team as far as receivers are concerned. But which Martavis Bryant are you getting? You could be getting the one that doesn't want to show up this week, and he just pretty much goes in a tank. And you could get the guy that looks like Randy Moss at the same time. You just never know.
Right. And then you have some of their notable draft picks. They picked up offensive tackles in the first and third rounds. Colton Miller, Brandon Parker. You got Maurice Hurst out of Michigan. Nick Nelson out of Wisconsin. Arden Key out of LSU. So they've added some. Putting Stuckey in the fold. I'm still, we watched him on Monday Night Football. We watched him analyze the game, but you kind of wonder if once he's back in the fold, is his style going to be a little inundated? Like, is he going to adapt to the quote-unquote new NFL? Because there's basically been a generation change since he's been out of the league. Luckily enough for him, and maybe luckily enough for the Raiders organization, he was right there for it because he was still calling games, the biggest games of the week every Monday night. So this is a case where you hope that the head coach, especially if you're a Raiders fan, you hope that the head coach doesn't come in and is basically defiant, for a lack of a better term, to the adaptation to the new components of the NFL. And we'll see where Chucky's head is around all of that. So what do you think about this offense in general? You have Derek Carr at the helm offense. We talked about Martavis Bryant joining the fold. You have Amari Cooper. What do you think that the offense is capable of this season? Two seasons ago, they were a pretty good bunch.
This offense could be pretty explosive. I don't see the running back position. Marshawn Lynch is back, but I'm not really. That's not Marshawn Lynch back. That's not beast mode back there. That's just Marshawn Lynch. There's a difference. He's just there for the coaching. So for me, when I look at this team's gonna have to throw the ball a lot, and I think John Gruden, that's the way he likes it. The way he talks about quarterbacks is you think he throw the ball 60 times a game, but you have a bunch of guys that all do a lot of the same things. Jordy Nelson and Amari Cooper, they do a little bit of the same. They're really, really nice possession receivers. Jordy's a little bit on the older side, but Amari Cooper hasn't really produced after the last couple of years. It's like I don't know. It just seems like he's regressed a little. He used to be a number one. Now he's a number two. Martavis Bryant could be the game changer. He's the outside guy that can stretch the field. But for me, it kind of lands on the right side of that offensive line. And that's the one question I have. I don't question Derek Carr. I think it's more so the line that doesn't give him the time to make the throws that he needs to make to guys that can need a little extra time to get open.
Yeah. Amari Cooper's regression, I don't even know if I want to call it regression, because what is he regressing back to? He came in on a high, but he just doesn't seem like the same guy. It's a little surprising to me. So we'll see what what the season will be about once everybody starts. But on the defensive end of things, what do you think about this Raiders defense?
Bombs away. That's the one thing I've been saying since last year, bombs away. You bring in Gary and Conley from Ohio State, and that it was okay, but not great. Khalil Mack's the only guy on that defense that actually gives a rat's butt about anything, because it seems like nobody can get after the quarterback. I actually thought Mario Edwards Jr. was going to be somebody. Not really. So for me, if I'm a coach approaching this team on the schedule, I just think bombs away. Just throw on this team because the secondary is the weak link here, and if you can avoid Khalil Mack touching your quarterback at all, double team him, triple team him, whatever you have to do to stop him. And if you do that, you can have a lot of success.
All right. Check out their schedule. Any key games on the schedule?
Schedule-wise, when I look at this team, for me, what I really see early on is, like you said earlier, you get the Rams early, you get the Broncos early. That can be kind of daunting, simply put. They're good defenses. But then you get a healthy dose of Miami and Cleveland. Some wins there. You get the Colts mixed in there. The Ravens. These are all winnable games. You get the Bengals, winnable games. If you can win the games that you're supposed to win, you can put yourself in position to potentially make the playoffs. Simply put, this is not a really tough schedule as long as you can avoid some of the tougher defenses. That Raiders-Chargers game is always, whether it's for either one, is always a doozy. Somehow those teams just play some of the most physical games I've ever seen. And when you got Phillip Rivers doing with Derek Carr, we say quarterbacks don't really play each other. In those type of games, those type of guys make a big difference. But schedule's not daunting, so if they can navigate it, I think they can find a way into the playoffs. Anything's possible.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm looking at, because I think, in my opinion, I think they're as good a team as their schedule might allow them to be. So I can see them improving about 9 wins, just off schedule. And then we'll get excited about Chucky and how he improved the team 4 wins and the next season. There'll be some trash. So let's move on to the Raiders. We got 2 teams left on this first quarter of our NFL preview, and we're going to try to hurry it up so we won't keep you guys all day. Let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, this is a team that I was high on. I don't know if you remember, Fred. I was high on this team coming into the season. And as usual, like somewhere along the way, whether it's early, late, or a stretch in the middle, this team always underachieves, in my opinion, which leaves them on the outside looking in. Last season, it was the start, wasn't it? They didn't have a great start last season, and then they wind up in an uphill battle, still being able to come out of the whole thing with 9 wins. But I think that team was better than 9 wins last season, even though they say you are what your record says you are. Anything notable for you on the Los Angeles Chargers coaching staff?
No noticeable changes. A lot of the major moves for this team again, and I think for these 2 divisions, that not much changed as far as coaching is concerned. A lot of roster turnover, a lot of additions, which will help both sides of the ball.
All right, so let's do them both at the same time. Who'd they lose and who'd they pick up?
For this team, for the Chargers, when I look at pickups, I see help on the offensive line, and I can't really call it a pickup because he really didn't do much for him. But Dan Feeney on the offensive line injured, as well as Forrest Lamp. Didn't really play much, but they'll be because of injuries. Those guys will be. I look at those guys as kind of like having a red shirt season. So those guys are kind of like those guys are really going into their rookie years. That's going to be huge for this team because the offensive line was one of those things that it just plagues this team so much. Picking up Mike Pouncey from the Miami Dolphins is going to also help this team out at that center position. They can kind of give Phillip Rivers some extra time, help Melvin Gordon out a little bit, help these guys out. This team can go a little bit further than they did last year.
I think Derwin James was a great pickup in the NFL draft. And their secondary is something that I want to keep an eye on because, we know Joey Bosa and the front gets a lot of attention. But I think the secondary, with the addition of Derwin James, if he can come in and be the game changer that he's slated to be, could be a very good secondary in this league. It's Casey Hayward, Desmond King, Jason Verrett. Hayward
when he's healthy,
is probably going to be.
Jason Verrett when he's healthy, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say Casey Hayward will probably, be their top corner entering, but most of the potential and what he can be. Like I'm really excited to see Derwin James in action once the season gets started. So offensively, like what do you think is the ceiling for this team offensively? Phillip Rivers is not a young guy. You mentioned the running back. What can they possibly do this season that will make them more of a consistent team than they were in seasons past?
Give Keenan Allen back and have him Hunter Henry
You got some kind of feedback. I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think Hunter Henry being out for the season is going to be huge for them. I think Phillip Rivers relies on him a lot. Now that he's gone, over-reliable Antonio Gates is going to be. They're going to bring him back at some point. If this team goes with Melvin Gordon, I think that's what you can't rely on Phillip Rivers as much throughout the guy at this point in his career. Use him sparingly. Let him be the guy that takes you towards the playoffs at the end of the year, takes you into the playoffs. All right.
Guys, if you can't hear Fred, he said Melvin Gordon is going to be the guy. They're going to go where he takes him because he put on Phillip Rivers at this advanced age. I don't know. Your microphone has some kind of feedback. Sound like your microphone is getting vacuumed or something. That's better. All right. So on the defensive side of the ball, like I already mentioned, we know of the legend of Joey Bosa already. But the unit to watch for me, as I mentioned earlier, is the secondary. So I'm interested in seeing that. What do you think of the defense overall?
This defensive line is going to take this team as far as they want to go. Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram III, these guys are going to be just getting after quarterbacks. And I love seeing a tandem just get after people. This secondary, I like Casey Hayward. I love Desmond King. I think he reminds me of a guy that I have on my team in Devin McCourty a lot. Jason Verrett doesn't do much for me. He's always hurt. He's really small. I don't really like small corners, really. But the latter, the two guys that I just named, those are going to be the guys in the secondary that help out a lot. And of course, I gotta always be interested in seeing what my boy Denzel Perryman from the U does. Always seeing what he does. Those Miami linebackers, they just find ways to either knock you out or chase it down. So this defense will be a good defense, not a great defense. But in a division where points are at a premium, if you can hold teams to 17, maybe 20 points, that's a good day.
All right, so they have a bye week 8. With the Chiefs, at the Bills, at the Rams, the Raiders, at the Browns, and the Titans before they go into their bye week. Personally, since I was already high on this team last year, I think I'm gonna drink the Kool-Aid one more year. Maybe they can finally get it together and be some sort of consistent. So I don't see too many major threats in that, in those first 7 games before the bye week. I honestly can see them skating out of there with maybe 1 or at the most 2 losses before the bye week. And then, after the bye week, you have at Seattle, at Raiders, Broncos, Cardinals, at Steelers, Bengals, at Chiefs, Ravens, at Broncos. I don't look at their schedule at all to be that daunting. What do you think about key games, and what is your prediction for this team record-wise?
Chiefs is always a tough one. You start out the season with those guys. Division games are always the toughest. When I look
even
at schedules,
still, you get a new signal caller. So for me, it's like,
yeah,
still.
I think for me, when I look at schedules, I always say, what quarterback are they playing against? And there's not a lot of elite quarterbacks in this. I think there's one elite. In actuality, there's only one elite quarterback that they'll see, and that's Ben Roethlisberger, and I'm not calling him elite anymore. He's the closest thing you'll get to that, and that's late in the season. This schedule's manageable, and they could easily win 9, maybe 10 games in a weak AFC where you could easily make the playoffs. And once you make the playoffs, all bets are off unless you go to New England, and you know how I feel about that. If you go to New England, it's over with.
My range for the Chargers, 10-6, 11-5. 10-6, 11-5. And I know you're out there like still drinking the Kool-Aid. I don't know what the hell is wrong with it.
That's a little worrisome. It's always let down when you drink the Kool-Aid. When you're down on them, they find
one of those things.
Plays.
It's one of those things, Fred. You keep saying it. Some damn point you got to be right. So, last but not least, we're going to talk about who was the cream of this division last season, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs, who finished 10-6 with a division win. This team started, out of the gate very fast last season. They took
I know. Week 1,
Super Bowl team. Week 1 and Week 2, they took down both participants in last year's Super Bowl. And throughout the first 6-7 games of the season, they were being considered the best team in the NFL by most rankings. And then it all went downhill from there. They finished 10-6. Anything notable to you on the coaching staff before we talk about key departures on the field?
Yeah, when you lose your offensive coordinator and quarterback coach and Matt Nagy, who went over to the Chicago Bears, that's kind of a red flag, especially with a new quarterback. But then again, there's still Andy Reid, so it kind of cancels itself out. That's really the major change I've seen in this team.
Okay, and of course, key departures. Alex, we knew, the writing was on the wall. We kind of knew that this was going to happen when they drafted Patrick Mahomes. It was pretty much set in stone that they were finally going to give him his shot this upcoming season. So that left Alex Smith as the odd man out. So that's the biggest departure, in my opinion. Anything you want to note before we talk about the additions?
Marcus Peters, the most.
I forget about that.
Marcus Peters over the last couple of years, it's very hard for me to like a corner simply because of explosive plays. He's not just he's the ultimate boomer bust corner. He will bite. He bites on everything, but if he's right, he's right. And a lot of times he's more right than wrong. So he's going to be a big loss for them. And I saw the whole Kendall Fuller thing going over to the Chiefs. It's kind of like a lateral move because you get a number one corner out of it with the trade for Alex Smith. But at the same time, I really, really think that's going to be huge. A huge loss, because when you have a guy that can command, like, you can't throw his way. You can't throw at Marcus Peters at all because you know it's going to go. At some point, he's going to bait you and he's going to take it back with 6. I don't think Kyle Fuller is going.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about the key additions then. I mean, those were pretty big losses. They think that the Alex Smith loss is going to be, fine with the addition. We're going to call him an addition. Of course, he was already on the team, but Patrick Mahomes has taken the reign of this team now. So we'll add him to the additions list. Any other notable additions for this team, who was quite active because of the fact that they're supposed to be an upper echelon team, but they're tired basically of the early exits in the playoffs. So, there was some additions to that end. Sammy Watkins, for one. What about any more names that you can think of?
No real names outside of Sammy Watkins, but that was, for me, that one name changes a lot for that offense because of the fact that now, I've always said, if you get a nickname for your offense, that means you're doing something right, at least in the beginning. So for me, getting him is going to help change it because you had small guys at receiver. Now you have a bigger guy who, despite being on his third team, Sammy Watkins is a little bit. He's not a bad player. He's just not the player we thought he would be coming out of college. We thought he would be the second coming of AJ Green. We got a little bit of lesser of a player, but nothing. Just he's not a buster. He's just he wasn't what we thought he was.
Okay, and we also can't forget the addition of Kendall Fuller, who they got in the Alex Smith trade. So we'll see how these guys impact the team and what they can do. But let's talk about the offense, because I know you've been chomping at the bit to talk about this Kansas City offense because they've come up plenty of times in this broadcast when we weren't even talking about them because of the weapons that they have on the offensive side of the ball. Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, they're loaded. Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce.
Yeah, Travis Kelce. Yeah, this team's loaded.
These guys are loaded, and if Patrick Mahomes can step in and be the explosive weapon that he's touted to be, then not only will this team not miss a beat, but they could become much better and much more explosive. As we know, Alex Smith opened it up a little bit more than we're used to seeing him do, but he's still a pretty conservative quarterback by all rights. Now, Patrick Mahomes, I've seen him make some of his throws. Like, you can tell me a little bit more about him as far as the technicalities of the games go. Straight off the top, this dude has a rocket strapped to his right arm or something, a hand cannon. He has something. He put one on a rope the other night in a preseason game, 70 yards in the air for a touchdown.
Yeah.
You don't see too many 70 in the air type things. Hand cannon. What can this offense do? How explosive can they be?
This team can do everything. They have the underneath passing game. They have the running game. The offensive line is really, really decent, especially the interior. You have you have Little Gronk, and I know he doesn't like being called Little Gronk, but I don't care. You're Little Gronk, Travis Kelce. So not only do you can kill him underneath with Sammy Watkins, you can beat him deep with Tyreek Hill, and oh, by the way, he's going to get the help from Travis Kelce, where he's going to make a safety move. He's the guy that Travis Kelce can play outside. You can put him in red zone situations. You just throw it up to him, and Patrick Mahomes looks very accurate. I mean, most guys, if you throw it 60 yards, 70 yards, it's not an accurate ball.
Right. Like a fast receiver has to take the time that it's in the air and go get it.
Yeah.
He's throwing it to
He's throwing it to a spot and saying, go get it, Tyreek Hill. And by the way, you can put Tyreek Hill is he's an instant touchdown machine because you can put him on kick returns, punt returns, screens. You can do a lot of different things with him, and if he throws up, he chunks to do stuff, it's over with. Because for me, this team has so many weapons. They literally have a nickname, and anytime a team gets a nickname, I mean, they call them the Ferrari offense. I mean, and it's warranted. Sammy Watkins, you have a track team out here. So if the running game works out with Kareem Hunt, and he hit a bit of a rookie wall last year, and because he was leading the league in rushing yardage last year at a certain point, and he just kind of hit this wall that all rookies do. But if he can kind of keep it going, and this offense keeps up what they're doing because they're going to be an explosive team, this team could easily get 10 wins, 11 wins. I don't want to get into any more than 11, but the problem is going to be they're going to have to score a lot of points, as we're going to be in a minute talking about this defense.
All right, yeah, no. So, I mean, because I think we've said enough about the offense, and I definitely have to speed it up because we got to get out of here. So, on the defensive side of the ball, how good can this defense be?
I think the only thing I've seen that could hinder this team, like we talked about with Marcus Peters, when you have a lockdown corner, it makes a whole defense change. You can just say, you guard this guy, we'll worry about the rest. But you have a guy like a Justin Houston who can get after quarterbacks. Eric Berry's still patrolling the middle of the field, so that's going to be something huge for them. If they can produce turnovers still and get after quarterbacks, especially in their division with not so great quarterback play, very average, I guess, outside of Phillip Rivers, this team could go pretty far. They're just going to have to – if you can hold teams to maybe 20 points, I think this offense will be able to carry you the rest of the way. So they're going to have to play complementary football.
All right. And I'm gonna let you. We're gonna. I'm gonna let you make that point about the defense, and I'm gonna move on from that because we are really struggling on time here. So key games on their schedule. The Kansas City Chiefs, their bye week is until week 12. Out of the gate at the Chargers, at the Steelers, 49ers, at the Broncos, Jags, at the Patriots, Bengals, Broncos, at the Browns, Cardinals, and at the Rams before they even get a chance to rest. This I'm looking at as a pretty daunting schedule that they have to deal with out of the gate.
This will test this team. This team will be tested early. If they can get past the Patriots at week 6, after about week 6, this team has they have one real losable game, which would be the Rams in week 11. Other than that, the rest of the way is very manageable. I mean, do we really believe in the Ravens? Do we really believe in the Seahawks enough late, especially if this offense is rolling?
Right.
I think if the 3 major games for this schedule, Steelers, Jags, Patriots, if they can find a way to go 2-1 or even 3-0, this team's real.
Right. It's all about whether or not Andy Reid can steer that ship throughout the first 11 weeks of the season. Because like you said, after the bye week, things get a little more tame. And I think that's a pretty manageable part of the schedule. But if they can start out like they did last season, then the fall off in the second half of the season, it shouldn't be there as long as Andy can keep the team chugging along. And I know some Chiefs fans, shout out to the homie Savai Davis from the Tissue and the Tape podcast, also on the War Room Sports Podcast Network. He's a Chiefs fan, and he's not really big on Andy Reid as the head coach right now. So it's about if Andy can keep this talent gelling and keep these guys in a good groove going into that second half of the season, and they could do big things. I don't know though. I'm kind of skeptical about that front part of their schedule. So my prediction on the Kansas City Chiefs this season, I think I'm gonna keep them also around that 10-6, maybe 11-5 area, where it's going to be the Chiefs and the Chargers battling out again for this division. But I think it'll be more of a battle from start to finish, whereas last year, the Chiefs had to fall back and the Chargers had to kind of step it up to even get into the mix. I think it'll be kind of nip and tuck this year. You'll get that. You all will get that that prediction when we do the overall prediction show. But record real quick, Fred, before we get out of here.
9-7, 10-6. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid like you are on these Chargers. I'm just not ready to say 11 or 12 wins yet, because that's when you're talking about they're beating the teams, like I said, the Patriots, the Jags, and the Steelers. If they do that, they're winning 12, maybe 13 games, but that's a bit much right now.
All right, there you have it, everybody, and we we for keeping you guys as long as we have, man. When you're in these previews, you get to talking and analyzing, the time just flies. But that has been our AFC and NFC West previews. Stay tuned with us for our next 3 shows where we're going to do the AFC, NFC North, AFC, and NFC South, and finish it off with the AFC and NFC East before we do our overall playoff picture and prediction show. So, check out everything we're doing at WarRoomSports.com. We will let you know on social media where you can check out the current episodes of Cover 2 of McMillan and Purdue until the WRS Podcast Network is fully back up and functioning. You can check these episodes out on the War Room Sports YouTube page, on Fred's YouTube page. We're going to get the stuff to you. But it's an exciting time because the NFL is finally here. We are weeks away from kickoff, and I know I can't wait myself, and I'm sure, Fred, you feel the same way. But we're going to get out of here. And, for my partner, Fred Purdue, this is Devin McMillan. This has been another episode of Cover 2 with McMillan and Purdue. You guys out there, man, don't accept mediocrity. Be steadfast in the war against ignorance. And we'll see you.
Going up to the cell. Touchdown. The big screen. Sanchez over the middle. Touchdown. Play action. Cutler wide open. Sanzenbacher.
It's the 2 megastars summer mashup, the awesome iPhone, on the Rockstar Metro PCS network. Get the iPhone you've always wanted for $0, so you can jam without limits.
It's a hit. Get an iPhone SE on us when you switch. Metro PCS. Coverage not available in some areas, plus sales tax and $10 activation fee. Requires port-in of number not currently active on T-Mobile network or on Metro PCS in past 90 days to an unlimited LTE plan. See store for details and terms and conditions.
It's the 2 megastars summer mashup, the awesome iPhone, on the Rockstar Metro PCS network. Get the iPhone you've always wanted for $0, so you can jam without limits.
It's a hit. Get an iPhone SE on us when you switch. Metro PCS. Coverage not available in some areas, plus sales tax and $10 activation fee. Requires port-in of number not currently active on T-Mobile network or on Metro PCS in past 90 days to an unlimited LTE plan. See store for details and terms and conditions.